Hello everybody, welcome to a new episode of IBD Essentials. Today I'm sitting here with a long-term colleague and friend, Jean-Fred Colombel. He is now at Mount Sinai in New York, but he is originally a Frenchman. He was president of ECCO. He is probably the godfather of IBD, and he has started so many relevant and important projects. So we could meet 20 times just to talk about all his different studies. But first of all, Jean-Fred, welcome. It's a great pleasure to have you here, and having now such a great expert, leading expert on IBD, and with such a huge background, perhaps you introduce yourself and explain why you did move to Mount Sinai in New York as a Frenchman. Usually I thought French people would stay in the France forever, but you're a little bit going back and forth, at least for vacation. And as I heard, you will be working also again in France pretty soon.
Paris, yeah. First, thank you for having me. Actually, this is a great honor, and we have been friends for so many years, which is what is nice in IBD. There is this kind of friendship, which is, I think, it's quite unique. If you go to other discipline, I think it's not always the case. So, as you know, I hope you notice my strong New Yorker accent. I always say, but I'm French, and so I started my career, believe it or not, in 1978 as a fellow, and I have been treating patients for now more than 40 years. I started IBD because in the 70s I saw the rising incidence of Crohn's disease, especially in northern France. It was not very well known in the 70s. Very interestingly, it was known in Belgium, but not so much in northern France. There was this kind of, of shift, and then suddenly we started to see cases, and I still don't know why. So why did I start IBD? Because it's all about patients, and if I have to not make recommendation, but to give some advice for the young people, because I think it's the most important, is first you have to start your work with patients. You have to have access to patients. It has to be practical. Second, what's very important, my second motto is outside the box. Don't do what other people are doing, because then you will always be a follower and not an innovator. Third, all my life is about networking. So when I was in France, very early, I created this network among gastroenterologists working in northern France, and we built the first epidemiological study in IBD, which is EpiMAD, still one of the biggest registries. Then, of course, I was a member of the JETED, which is an amazing group of French people, good friends, and we did a lot of studies, with my late friend Marc Lehmann. And then I became the first elected president of ECCO in 2009 and chairman of IBD, but that doesn't matter. What is really, it's about networking. So network at your local level. Try to network with people that you will not immediately think about. For instance, look at what is strong in your hospital or university outside IBD. For instance, if you have a strong radiology group, go to them. If you have a strong pathology, go to them. Pneumology, there are so many different things that you can do, and then this will be original. So this is absolutely key. So network at your local level, then at a national level, and then international. I think because this will amplify your work, and it's not always easy, and I can tell you it's much more difficult in US, because in US there is not this spirit of collaboration as much, because people, the universities or hospital in New York say, okay, it's okay for you to collaborate, but you need to be in charge, and you need to get the money. Right? Why actually if you want to collaborate, you have to accept that at some point in your life you will work for others. Right, and then the wheel will turn, and then they will work for you, and then you will build something very strong together. So this is what I've been doing my whole life. I've mentored, I don't know how many fellows from France and now from all over the world, which is the most important. And Axel, I always say, what will remain at the end, I'm closer to the end than the beginning, it's only the life of people that you have changed. Your patients first, because your patients will always remember you, right? I mean, if you did well, did well, and your fellows.
Yeah.
The rest, garbage of history. Okay, I contributed to some discoveries like NOT2, ASCA, adhesive E. coli, some important clinical trials, but at the end, it's not the most important. Most important is all about people.
But you have a huge area of people, and they are all tremendous. Many of them are also now big leaders all over the world. So it's a legacy, and it's your. In Germany, we say it's a school of a person, and I'm really impressed, to be really honest, because you are really one always looking out of the box. Networking is something which probably some more people can do, but you need to do it on a way. But really doing something where everything and everyone believes this is crazy, this person is doing something which will lead to nothing, and do it and spend time. And there is a risk of failure, but there is also a very high risk of very great success in doing something innovative, which will change the world.
Absolutely, Alex. And going back to mentorships, you have to accept that at some point your mentees will become better than you.
Yeah.
And for some people it's difficult to accept, but for me it's the most rewarding when I see my mentees on the podium, presenting things. I say, wow, my gosh, this is big, and I'm not sure I fully understand what it looks. I think this is this is super.
No, I think this is extremely important, and I always feel they have to be better than you, because then you were really successful. And probably we as internists and gastroenterologists, for us it's a little bit easier. I always think when I talk to my surgical colleagues, if there is somebody doing a better surgery, then they are really getting unhappy. I have exactly the same feeling. You need to be proud that the people will overturn you. And
so you know what, my dream, Axel, when I will retire, I want to organize a big party and try to invite all the fellows that I've mentored.
I must tell you, unfortunately, it will probably not be possible, because you have so many fellows. It will be something like ECCO. You will need a stadium.
And talking about ECCO, we were at the beginning. I said, remember the first ECCO meeting in Amsterdam? A very small meeting, right? We were 500 maybe?
No, even less.
Yeah, and even less. We have this live endoscopy demonstration at that time, I remember. Then next one in Innsbruck, and then now look, it's gigantic. I mean, I think for the plenary sessions there are almost 8,000 people.
Yeah, there are 8,200 in Berlin, and also in Stockholm it's 7,400 or so. It's the huge and biggest IBD meeting in the world. And I think it's very good that the two of us were there at the start, and we're doing a lot of.
No, I think we have to be proud about that, and especially to see also young people. My gosh, there is a very vibrant community.
And now coming the whole world. It's not only a European meeting, it's the US and East Asia. Everyone is here. So I think it's very exciting, and it's very good. Before we really move to at least two of your highlight works, I would just like to know, why did it come that you would go to Mount Sinai and leave France? Because you were the most successful person in France at the time you were leaving.
So, Axel, a very important point. It's all about people and about people you meet. So first, when I arrived in Lille, I met my mentor, Antoine Cortot. I don't know if you know him.
Sure.
He was an amazing guy. And this guy was really pushing me. So this was the first guy who was super important in my career. Then in 2008 or 9, I can't remember, I met Lloyd Mayer, who was the head of GI in New York. And Lloyd told me something, Jean-Fred, you should come to Sinai because sky is the limit.
Yeah.
I will always remember that. Sky is the limit. Because I was doing well in France, but there were limitations. I didn't have access to a lot of basic scientists, not a lot of resources. There were a lot of politics in France, and IBD was seen and is still seen as something very minor as compared to diabetes, cancer, obesity. So all the regional and national funding was going to those diseases and nothing to IBD. So I was a little bit frustrated because we already had a big center, but it was not recognized. And then I took this decision, which was a big jump, because I have 4 children. So I had to move with my 4 kids, abandon everything. I almost moved with a backpack, I can tell you, because I don't care about what I leave behind. And then we arrived in New York. And now my 4 kids are all over the world. My daughter is in New York, married. I have one son in Bangkok, one son in Montreal, and one son in Réunion Island. So they're
So you
all over
can
the
travel
place.
a lot.
Yes, yeah, no, but this is, and then so it was meeting with Lloyd, and then Bruce Sands, with the head of my department, arrived approximately at the same time, little bit before me. And Bruce told me, okay, this is great. We should, because Sinai had a very big reputation, historical with Dan Present, Bert Correlitz, David Saka. But it was a little bit going down. They had more a reputation than really doing things. And I told to Bruce, we need to basically renovate the Sinai. And the way to do it was, again, always the same, bring young, brilliant people. And this is what you have in US. US, and especially in New York, is attracting, I think, the best people in the world coming from all over the world. Actually, I am working with very few original Americans. Most of them are coming from India, from Germany, from UK, and so on. So this is the strength of US, and I hope it will stay like that despite the current uncertainty, because this is really this is a huge strength of New York and of US.
Yeah, I had the same experience because I was working with Bruce Sands together at Mass General at a certain time, and in our group there was only Bruce Sands who was the only real American, and the others were people from all over the world, and exactly the same. So I think it's very typical,
US. And I think it's true for everything. You want to work in fashion, you want to work in music. And if you can make it in New York, you can make it everywhere, as the song goes.
I think we could now pick numerous of your landmark projects. I would like to challenge you with something which I always call the diaper project. Jean-Fred, starting with the diapers and predict something. So I think this is probably a very good topic.
So in IBD, we have a lot of drugs now, but it's okay, it's interesting, but what really matters, like in many diseases, is early. Early is a key word in managing IBD. If you catch the disease early, it's a different story. If you catch the disease after 2-3 years, it's same for cancer, it's same for everything. So I'm obsessed about catching the disease early. And we have seen, during this meeting, the beautiful profile study from UK showing that if you catch the patients very early after diagnosis, their prognosis is amazing, right?
Yep.
So, but I was thinking, I want to do earlier than early, which is before, even before the disease is happening, which is all this area of prediction and prevention. When I started that many years ago, people were telling me, you are crazy, this will never work. And now look, it's gaining momentum. Everybody's interested. There are a lot of initiatives. So I'm really obsessed about that. So in order to do so, you have to build some cohorts. So very interestingly, for a French guy, I'm now the best friend of the US Army. And because I got access to this amazing resource, which is a Department of Defense repository. So in a nutshell, when you are enrolled in the US Army, starting in the 80s because of HIV screening, you have to give your blood. And then you have to give your blood every 2 years. And there was a clever guy in the army, let's keep the blood. So they have this repository of 80 million samples, 80 million, 80. And of course, among those young people, some of them after enrollment, they develop diabetes, MS, Crohn, and then you can have access to all their preclinical samples in the gold mine.
Yeah.
And now actually I'm extending my research to MS, EOE, early colon cancer. I know that you are very interested in that because this is what we can do. So this is one aspect. The second, for instance, an example that you just gave, we have this what we call the meconium cohort. So the point that we believe that what really matters as far as environment is what's happening in early life. Even during the pregnancy and the first months of life, when your immune system is educated and so on. So this is why we build this another cohort, which is called the meconium cohort. So we are following mothers with IBD who are getting pregnant and control mothers. At birth, we collect everything, cord blood and the meconium, which is the first tool, which is not in contact with the external environment, and placenta, so we get everything. And then we follow those kids. But of course, we can't get blood, so we collect diapers. So this is what I was saying. I have the biggest collection of diapers in the world because we collect all those diapers. And now our oldest kid is 7 years old. Of course, we are not looking at development of Crohn's disease because they are still very young. But you can see, okay, if you are born to a mother who has Crohn's disease, is there something already when you are born which is different from control kids? And the answer is yes. The microbiome is already different. There is some evidence of subclinical inflammation as measured by calprotectin. So it's showing that early life matters. And maybe this is also key for future prevention studies, targeting the early life. So already we can give some recommendation to mothers, For instance, avoid antibiotics in their kids, avoid smoking. Passive smoking is certainly bad. Diet, diet is huge now in our discipline. Diet is all over the place, even though the evidence is still not very strong.
But I think this is a typical example of what you highlighted earlier.
Yeah.
Looking out of the box, everyone's saying you are crazy to do it. And to be really honest, this is the holy grail for all of us. And I think most of us were still, will we achieve this in our lifetime? And you made such a huge progress, and especially the last point, you can easily modify, for instance, a diet, you can use probiotics, so things that are not making a lot of damage, and avoid smoking is good for everything.
Exactly.
For this, probably we don't need a study, but...
So we can already make general recommendation at the population level to patients who are already at risk, meaning first degree relatives of patients. But of course, the holy grail is to do what we call secondary prevention, to design a tool that will allow you to predict that the disease will develop in your kid within 2 years, and then to do a prevention study. Another example, very interesting, of another cohort that we are doing with Joanna Torres, one of my fellows as well, she's brilliant, is to look at teeth. That when you look at your deciduous teeth, so if you have one of your teeth that you lost, I can look at the teeth and do laser dissection of the teeth. It's like a tree, So you are accumulating exposure to everything since the second trimester of your pregnancy. So I can tell you if you have been breastfed, if you have been exposed to lead, to any kind of cadmium, and so on and so forth. So it's super interesting.
And but this also shows again you need a network, because now what you just mentioned as a side step, there are so many different people involved in doing it. You need immunologists to tell you what are the important signatures. Now you need dentists, you need pediatricians,
and we need, for instance, for this study, very interestingly, we need to go to countries where it's very common to keep the teeth. And you know what are those countries? Portugal and Brazil.
Okay.
Which is very interesting. You know, they all families keep the teeth of their kids in those countries. It's a tradition.
And how many teeth do you have now in
We
your?
have 100 from patients who develop Crohn's disease and 100 controls.
Okay.
So Joanna is a lead on that, and it's very interesting.
Oh,
Yeah, and you know the beauty now is that we have a fantastic group at Sinai of young people, and meaning that now they are all their specific area of research, and they are working together. It's not always easy, because there is some ego, and sometimes. So this is my role now.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I like the term Godfather. I am the pacificator, meaning that I need to, you know, say, okay, let's calm down.
How do you, or when do you expect the really first results where you can have a predictive factor?
So very soon, actually, we hope, you know, we have this huge European grant called Intercept, which is supported by the IHI, so by the European Union. So thank you, the European Union. So we are building, first we are basically validating our prediction marker that we have in North American cohort, in European cohorts, from Germany, from Netherlands, from Denmark. Then Joanna is leading a huge effort, and we need UEGW, we need UEG, we need ECCO to help us. We need to basically enroll 10,000 first-degree relatives that we will prospectively follow. And among those, some will have a very high risk score, you know, based on blood and calprotectin, and then they will be enrolled in the first prevention trial, which is secondary prevention in people are super high risk, comparing vedolizumab and placebo.
Yeah. I think this all will lead to the major step. What you said, diagnosing early is perfect. Treating early is very perfect. You mentioned just the profile trial.
Yes.
They were treating within 14 days after diagnosis, but patients had already strictures and fistula 15%. So this was probably early, but not early enough. At least if we would have it immediately, you are one step in advance. You would like to have it before.
Yeah, but the point actually is that, you know, I agree with you, but what I realized with the PREDICT study is that 20% of patients in the PREDICT cohort, they are presenting at diagnosis with complications.
Yeah.
And what is fascinating is that their preclinical biomarkers 10 years before are not the same. So I mean that progression is not always occurring because the disease is not treated. Maybe you are predestinated to have complicated Crohn's disease. So complicated Crohn's disease, it may be the different disease.
Yeah.
Which by itself is fascinating, I think.
Jean-Fred, this was amazing. I think we could talk forever. Hopefully I can invite you again to continue on several of these topics. Thank you so much. It was really wonderful, and I really hope you liked this episode. You may like us if you really liked it. If you are interested in other topics, have suggestions, please just write it down, and hope to see you soon. The next episode of IBD Essentials will follow in about 2 weeks. Thank you.